Learning how to make red beans and rice Louisiana style is easy. This recipe has a lot of ingredients, so it has a ton of flavor. Not just red beans, but also ham, smoked andouille sausage, chicken broth, and a lot of seasoning. Here in this pot, I have 1 teaspoon of canola oil that I'm heating up over medium heat. And here I have my andouille sausage. Like I said, this Louisiana style red beans and rice recipe has a lot of ingredients, and one of the stars of the show is andouille sausage. It's a type of smoked sausage from Louisiana. It's one of the traditional ingredients in red beans and rice, and it's going to add a ton of flavor. Like I said, I'm heating up the oil a little bit, and to the oil I'm going to add my sausage. I have 14 ounces, just under 400 grams of sausage. It's been about 5 or 10 minutes, and my andouille sausage, as you can see, is browned. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove it from the pan, and I'm going to add the trinity vegetables that I already chopped. Although this red beans and rice recipe is easy, it does have a lot of steps, and it actually began yesterday. So what I did yesterday is I made some chicken broth. I did research on this recipe. Some recipes call for chicken broth, some don't. It seems like a lot of the more modern recipes do, but the older ones do not. I'm not sure which video will go up first. Here are my onions, celery, and red bell pepper. I'm not sure which recipe will go up first, but I made some lima beans with ham last week, and I really liked how they turned out. I actually used chicken stock instead of water, and I really like the flavor of the chicken with the ham actually. Oh, this might need some more oil. I added a bit more oil, and that looks better. Like I said, I really like the flavor of the chicken and the ham together, surprisingly. So yesterday I made some chicken broth by simmering skinless chicken leg quarter on low for about 2 hours with some garlic, onion, celery, and bay leaf, like I always do. I set that aside, and then earlier today I started soaking my kidney beans. You can see over here. I forgot to soak them last night, so what I did is I heated up some water to the point that it was steaming but not boiling, and I added that to the pot just to slightly cover the beans. The beans expanded, and then I added a little more water, maybe 2 or 3 more times. The beans have now been soaking for 4 hours, and I think they are definitely good to go. While the beans were soaking, I made some ham bone stock. So I had a bone from a ham shank I made a little while ago. I froze the bone because I knew I wanted to make some red beans and rice. So I boiled the ham bone to make stock, like what I did with my split green pea soup, for about 2 hours. This bone actually had a good amount of meat left on it, as you can see. So I'm going to add that to the soup as well. And the ham bone stock is over here. Let's see if I could show it. I could have just boiled it along with the, or I could have boiled it in the chicken stock, but the ham bone was on the fatty side, and just like with the split pea soup, I wanted to control the level of fat a little bit. Now I'm going to add the garlic. I'm going with 3 large cloves of garlic. I really like garlic, but do not feel compelled to add quite that much. I would not add the garlic along with the celery, onions, and bell pepper because garlic burns really easily, and if it burns it turns bitter. So if you're going to cook, let's say, onions for 5 minutes, you think, I would cook the onions on their own for 4 minutes, and then I would add the garlic for the last minute. That way the garlic can have a bit of time to cook, but not turn bitter. It's been about a minute or two. The garlic is nice and fragrant, so now it's time to add the beans. Here I have my 1 pound of kidney beans. Just going to toss them in there. Now that my beans are in the pot, I'm going to add my broths. Like I said, I have both chicken stock and ham bone broth. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add equal amounts of each, just to start off with. So here I have 1 cup of the chicken stock. I know I'm going to add more liquid as time goes on, but just to start off with, I'm going to do maybe 2 cups of each. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some more bay leaf. The chicken stock, I made it with some bay leaf, but seems like in Louisiana style red beans and rice, pretty much all the recipes have bay leaf, so I'm going to add a little more. I honestly really like bay leaf. I think it's kind of a secret ingredient in a lot of things. I've noticed when I add it to chicken stock, it just takes it to a whole other level. I'm tempted to put the ham bone back in there, so I'm going to do that now. I think it probably still has some more flavor to give off. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, actually I might even add some more liquid. My pot of red beans is now boiling. I ended up adding 4 cups of the ham stock and 4 cups of the chicken stock. Actually 4 1/4 cups of the chicken stock because there wasn't much left, so I just added all of it. I brought the red beans to a boil on high heat. Now I am turning it down to medium. I'm going to skim off some of this foam while trying not to remove the vegetables along with the foam. And I am going to cook this for, I'm guessing, between 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And I'm going to stir occasionally, probably once every 10 to 20 minutes. My red beans have now been cooking for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. You can see they're starting to thicken up a bit. So far, I have not added any extra liquid. Now I think I have about 1 hour left to go, maybe 45 minutes. Not quite sure, but I'm going to add my ham. Like I said, this is the ham that came off of the ham bone. I don't want it to be in super small chunks, so I'm going to break it up a bit, but not too much. I think this ham is going to add a lot of nice flavor to the broth. It's been about 10 or 15 minutes since I added the ham, and you can see the broth is even thicker now. I tasted the beans and they're actually soft. Some of them are starting to fall apart, so I think this is getting really close to being done. Much faster than I was anticipating. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my andouille sausage. Stir. And then I'm going to start my rice. I'm just making some minute rice in the microwave because I'm just going to press the easy button. My red beans and rice have now been cooking on medium heat for a total of 1.5 hours. Honestly, I think they're done. As you can see, everything is nice and thick. I might actually add a little bit more of the ham broth, and then I'm going to mix it and then turn it down to low heat. Now I'm going to start making my minute rice in the microwave. Like I said, sometimes you just gotta press the easy button. And while that is cooking, I'm going to get together the spices. And now it's time to add the spices. I did a lot of research for this recipe, and it seems like homemade Louisiana style red beans and rice always has a lot of seasoning. Almost all of the recipes call for Tony Chachere's seasoning. It's very popular in Louisiana. And my friend here on YouTube, Beth, over at Frugal Mama in the Woods, she seems to put it in everything. I told myself, Parnell, make sure you get some, but I forgot. Make sure you make a grocery list. So I looked it up and it seemed like a lot of it's chili powder. It's mostly chili powder. So I think I'll be able to improvise. Like I said, I think this is already really flavorful. So I'm adding a little bit of everything. Then I'm going to taste it and see how it is. This is basically my whole spice cabinet. I have a 1/4 teaspoon each of cayenne pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, chili powder, thyme, oregano, parsley, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle that in. My red beans and rice from scratch is now complete, so I am ready to dig in. I ended up adding a little bit extra salt, so a 1/4 teaspoon in total, along with some extra black pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder for a full 1/2 teaspoon each of the black pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. I tasted it. The spices have had time to marry with everything. I am excited. As you can see, there's a nice thick broth. You can see the sausage, the ham, the beans. Some of the beans have broken down, but some of them are still whole. I think this is perfect. Like I said, I tasted it and it's really flavorful, but I think maybe it could use one more thing. I don't know if any of you have seen Charlie Andrews, but honestly, I think it could use one more thing. I don't know if any of you have seen Charlie Andrews here on YouTube. He's a chef and he does a lot of New Orleans type things. You should check out his channel. And when he did his red beans and rice, he used pickled pork. And then I was watching America's Test Kitchen and they mentioned that's kind of a big piece of pork. They mentioned that pickled pork was used very often traditionally, that it's hard to find, but what they did is they added a little bit of red wine vinegar, and that gave a bit of tang, I guess, from the pickled meat, and that really helped. I've noticed a bit of tang seems to help beans. I'm not quite sure why. I noticed that with the Argentine kikirimichi that I add to the locro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit, not of red wine vinegar, but of apple cider vinegar. Someone on All Recipes said that her family used to add apple cider vinegar to their red beans and rice. I'm just going to add a little bit. That should be good. So now I am ready to dig in. Honestly, this red beans and rice recipe turned out great. I thought it was perfect in terms of both appearance and taste. Visually, I like that although most of the beans remained whole, enough of them broke down to form a nice, thick, rich gravy that had that dark brownish red color that is characteristic of the classic dish. Although I haven't had red beans and rice in a long time, from what I remember, I think that the flavor profile was pretty close. Actually, this was my first time ever making Louisiana style red beans and rice with sausage and ham, so I think I did a pretty good job. The only major change I would make to this recipe is adding some basil. I did some research and it seems that Tony's Sachet seasoning has some basil. I added basil to the leftovers and I really liked what it did to the dish. Honestly, I was probably a bit too conservative in regards to the amount of spices that I added, since Louisiana style cooking is usually very flavorful. So on this screen, I'm going to put my recommendations for the amount of seasonings you should use. I was also really surprised by how much I liked the apple cider vinegar. I think it's a secret ingredient that really makes everything pop.
Like I said, this was my first time making red beans and rice, and I think it turned out really well. If you follow this easy recipe, I know you'll love it. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.